Hello, I'm Gretchen Crosby Sims, Vice President of Programs at the Joyce Foundation in Chicago, and it's my pleasure to be here today with Tom Kalil, the Deputy Director of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, and one of the people most responsible for the administration's incredible focus on using prize competitions to drive innovation in terms of solving long-standing social problems. So we wanted to have a brief conversation to learn a little bit more about why the Obama administration has made such a priority of using prizes and challenges. Tom, can you give us the high-level case for using prize competitions as a tool for government?
Sure. The reason that we got excited about this is that they work. So we've seen in many instances prizes have a real advantage relative to traditional grants and contracts as a way of getting things done. And prizes and challenges have a number of advantages. Number one, they allow the government to establish a goal without specifying in advance what team or approach is most likely to be successful. Second, the government only pays a winner if someone is successful. So if the government sets a goal and no one is able to accomplish that, the government doesn't have to pay any money. Third is that it really allows us to tap a much broader range of potential solvers. So a lot of times there are a limited number of people who are willing to do business with the government through our traditional procurement system, and we've seen over and over again prizes being able to tap into a much broader range of creative entrepreneurs, individual inventors, retired engineers to solve important government problems.
Can you give an example or two of important competitions that have taken place over the last couple of years and what kind of results they've had?
Yeah, so one example is the DARPA sponsored a grand challenge around driverless cars, so self-driving cars. And Google then hired the team, Sebastian Thrun at Stanford University, and Google is now working on commercializing that technology. NASA just did a prize around green flight and was able to get a really dramatic improvement in the efficiency of small aircraft. And for every dollar they put in, the private sector invested $4. So it really shows you that prizes, if they're well designed, can really give the government a great bang for the buck.
A lot of times these prize competitions are done not just by government agencies, but also in partnership with outside entities, nonprofit organizations, for-profit organizations. Can you talk a little bit about how prizes and challenges have been able to be a vehicle for public-private partnerships?
Sure. A good example is the prize that I had the opportunity to work with you on, and that is the Community College Prize for Excellence. We know that community colleges play a critical role in the workforce, and they just haven't gotten the attention that they deserve in this country. And so, as you know, working with the Joyce Foundation and a number of corporate foundations, we were able to have President Obama announce a community college prize for excellence that has been administered by the Aspen Foundation and has really done a tremendous job of identifying best practices all over the country for community colleges in terms of improving retention and other important learning outcomes.
How do you see, and it may be early still for a lot of the competitions that have gotten off the ground in the last couple of years, but how do you see these prize competitions mattering for everyday Americans?
Well, a good example is that under the leadership of Todd Park, who was the Chief Technology Officer of HHS and has now moved over to become the CTO for the White House, they identified a huge amount of data that HHS had in the area of healthcare that they were not making available to the public, which they have done. And by developing prize competitions, they've really gotten a lot of developers to create applications that take advantage of that data in ways that are going to improve health outcomes, improve quality, and lower costs.
That's great. One of the things you talked about earlier today was we've had a couple of years, 3 years or so of practice under our belts or experimentation under our belts at the federal level with prize competitions, and you've seen some initial trends, and you also, I believe, have put together a to-do list of where you'd like agencies to go over the next few years in terms of experimentation with challenges and competitions. Can you talk a little bit about what your to-do list looks like?
Yes. So I asked the agencies to think about a couple things. Number one is to start pursuing some more ambitious prizes and challenges. I think there's an understandable tendency for agencies when they're first putting their toe in the water, since this is a new model, a new approach, to do things that are relatively modest. And so I've been urging them to really go for it and identify and pursue some more ambitious challenges. I've also asked the agencies to start thinking about how to apply these not only in the technology space, but in the social sector as well. For understandable reasons, it's easier to measure progress on something that is just a technology problem, and prizes really benefit from having a clear finish line, like build a spacecraft that goes up 100 kilometers and repeats that within a 2-week period, or develop a car that gets the equivalent of 100 miles per gallon. And it's certainly trickier to develop a prize that is aimed at really solving some of these hard social problems, but I think we have to start looking at that.
Are there particular issues or problems that you'd hope to see tackled?
Well, I think one place where we might be able to start is prizes that are sort of at the intersection of technology with some societal problem. So there are 90 million Americans that are illiterate or have low levels of literacy. So people have been working on developing technologies that in a very short period of time would allow someone who is currently reading at the 6th grade level to read at the 8th grade level. So if we could establish some clear targets like that, where we believe technology could make a big difference, then that might be a place to start.
One, I think, challenge that might affect people is that they think that you've got to have a huge prize purse in order to really motivate dramatic change. A $10 million prize,
Yeah.
$1 million prize. But I think you've seen a range of incredible success in terms of how big the prizes are. Are there ways to get big impact, even if you don't have a huge prize purse or an expensive marketing campaign to sort of drive awareness?
Absolutely. So NASA, for example, sponsored a prize to develop better algorithms for solving a really important scientific problem, which is, where is all the dark matter in the universe? There's 84% of the matter in the universe that is unaccounted for. And they were able to get over 70 teams working on this problem for the price of a plane ticket to the Jet Propulsion Lab. So there are a lot of problems like that where the problem is just intrinsically interesting and people are willing to work on it for a small amount of recognition.
You have done, and others, your partners and your colleagues at the federal level have done an amazing job of spreading awareness of how challenges can be a tool and getting, 35, how many agencies working on challenges. Yep. I think that there is growing awareness and interest in other places, other levels of government, at the state level, at the city level. And I wonder if you have any advice for where sort of folks at different levels of government who don't have the same resources as the federal government might start in terms of thinking about using competitions. Do you have a couple of pieces of advice for policymakers at other levels?
Well, I think that this might be a great area for collaboration between multiple state governments or cities. We're already starting to see, for example, cities collaborate on information technology for open government and for making their government agencies more efficient. And we're seeing platforms like Topcoder that allow you to post a problem and then immediately get software coders from all over the world working on that problem. So that might be a good area. That also doesn't require a lot of resources. Also, big data. So we're seeing companies like Kaggle where you can post a huge amount of data that you have and get 40,000 different data scientists from all over the world looking for the patterns, for the nuggets in that data, and that might be used in a wide variety of areas at the state and local level, like improving transportation systems, for example.
One of the first places you have to start, obviously, when you think about using challenges, is in defining the problem that you're trying to solve. Yep. Can you talk a little bit about how you think about what is a kind of a problem that is going to be amenable to being addressed through a prize competition versus some other tool, a grant or a contract or some other approach?
Right. Well, clearly, I think that they work best when there is a clearly definable and measurable metric. So the best prizes work where there's not a whole lot of role for judges because you can define the finish line clearly enough so that it's obvious to people who's won and who hasn't. But I think it's important to recognize that there are different types of prizes and challenges, and that, for example, there are ideation challenges. And you asked a question earlier about what are the opportunities to get started. So one of the participants in today's conference is Karim Lakhani, and he and his colleagues did something at Harvard where they threw open a problem to everyone, which is, what do we not know about diabetes that might allow us to find a cure? And undergraduates participated in that, patients, experts in other fields, and it really generated a whole new set of questions, and they were able to take those and then go to a foundation and get support for teams to explore those questions. So there are types of prizes and challenges like ideation approaches where you can unbundle the idea generation from the execution. You can cast a very broad net in terms of new ideas from unconventional sources, and then you can use more traditional funding mechanisms to support the teams to go after the best ideas.
That's great advice. Last question. You have been working on prize competitions, any number of them, for a number of years now. If you were to think about the next 5 years, one problem that you could address successfully through a prize competition, your work is designed to be across agency, but if there are a problem or even two that you'd like to see some progress on, what is it?
Well, I am really excited about the potential of technology to make a difference in the area of education and workforce development. And one of the goals that the president has set is developing educational software that would be as effective as a personal tutor, as compelling as the best video game, and that would get better the more students used it. So I would like to see some prizes in the learning technology area because I think there's a lot of potential, but I think that if we look at what's in the classroom today, we're still a very long way from technology that has a truly transformational impact on teaching and learning.
Sounds like a very important agenda and one that we should let you get going on. So I think we're done. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.